1, Unit 10 practice test. State whether the statement is true or false. If false, provide a counterexample. All segment bisectors are perpendicular. That is false. Okay, and all I have to do is draw a picture, and you will definitely see this on your test. Okay, that's a picture of a segment bisector that is not perpendicular. And here I'll just go ahead and draw you a picture of a segment bisector that is perpendicular. And there's the difference between the two. Okay, so this would be the counterexample. B, if a triangle has 3 congruent sides and angles, then the triangle is equilateral. That's true. C, if A and B are complementary, then A equals B, or angle A equals angle B, and that's false. And I can draw a counterexample real simply. So complementary means a right angle. They add up to 90 degrees, so I'll just draw that, and I'll say 30 and 60. And there is angle A and angle B that are not congruent, but they are complementary. I know that because of that 90 degree there. Okay, number 2, for each statement, underline the hypothesis and circle the conclusion. That's going to be very important for writing conditional statements as well as converses and biconditional. So right after the if is our hypothesis. So study for the test, then followed by the conclusion. Okay, if, then the hypothesis, then followed by the conclusion. Identify the converse of the following statement. So here is our hypothesis, and there's our conclusion. So I'm looking for the conclusion. So angle B is a right angle. So far, so good. If angle B is a right angle, then the measure of angle B is 90 degrees. So there it is. So this would be if, conclusion, then hypothesis. That's the example of a converse. Moving on. Which statement is the biconditional statement of? Well, here's our hypothesis, then conclusion. So biconditional means hypothesis, if and only if, conclusion. So we're looking for 2. All right, here we go. 2 angles have the same measure if and only if they are congruent. There it is. Hypothesis. There's your if and only if. Conclusion. Okay, moving on to number 5. Which property does the following statement demonstrate? If the measure of angle A equals the measure of angle B, then the measure of angle B equals the measure of angle A. That is symmetric property. Okay. All right, number 6. Given the biconditional statement, a triangle is isosceles. There's your if and only if. It has 2 congruent sides. What 2 conditional statements make up the biconditional? Well, pretty easy. One is a triangle is isosceles, and the other is it has 2 congruent sides. This is the hypotenuse, hypothesis, and that's the conclusion. Okay, moving on. All right, going to be one just like this on your test. We want you to write it in a 2-column proof, and I'll try and point it out before the test because a lot of students make a mistake. They try and solve it, and they try and tell me how they solved it. Just write it in 2 columns like this. So I don't show my work. I'm going to distribute. So 5 times x is 5x. 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. Plus 8 equals negative 3. And all I did there was distributive property. Okay. Next, I have 5x minus 2 equals negative 3, and I combined like terms. Finally, I'm going to have 5x equals negative 1, and I used addition property. And then I would divide both sides by 5 to get that, so division property. Okay, there'll be one just like that on the test, and that's how you should solve it. Okay, number 8. Okay, given angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, that's always your first choice. Angle 2 is congruent to angle 4. Look at your picture. Sometimes you have to look at your picture. That's the definition of vertical angles. Transitive property. Okay? You're going to see this exact, I'm telling you, the exact proof is on your test. Angle 1 equals angle 2. Angle 2 equals angle 4. Therefore, angle 1 is congruent to angle 4. That's your transitive property. A equals B. B equals C. A equals C. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. Where do we get that? Oh, there it is right there. Definition of vertical angles. And finally, what goes here? Well, what we're trying to prove always comes last. Angle 3 is congruent to angle 4. How do we know that? Well, we know angle 1 is congruent to angle 4, so I can replace it right there. We know angle 1 is congruent to angle 3, so if angle 1 is congruent to angle 4 and angle 1 is congruent to angle 3, we can say angle 3 is congruent to angle 4. We could just say substitution property. I think transitive property would work as well. Okay, let's get these last two done and we'll take a break. Which equation can be used to find this? Well, we know these two guys, you should know these two guys are supplementary, which means 48 plus 2x plus 4 equals 180. You add them together and set it equal to 180. That's what supplementary is, and you can see that is right here at B. Okay, last one we'll do. Use the figure below, find x, measure of angle LMD, and the measure of angle LMH. So what do we know about these two guys? They're vertical, so we can set them equal to each other. I'll subtract 2x from both sides. I get 3x equals 18. I'll divide both sides by 3, and I get x equals 6. Okay, now they want to know what measure of LMD is. So that's 5 times 6, which is 30. Now be careful, LMH is right here. So if this guy is 30, they have to be supplementary. So 180 minus 30 is 150.